Welcome to the NWI.com Political Roundtable for Friday, January 17th. I'm Robert Blaszkiewicz, Assistant Managing Editor of The Times. Joined with me today, Doug Ross, Editorial Page Editor of The Times, and Crista Zivanovic, Assistant Managing Editor of The Times. Let's jump right in with the kind of the newsy goings-on at the Statehouse this week. Really kind of juicy from a political standpoint in terms of the battle over gay marriage and the amendment, and what Brian Bosma has done, kind of delaying the vote and kind of the maybe possibly shuffling committee members in order to get the desired outcome. What's going on there, Chris?
Well, basically, our story today that was on A1 by Dan Carden, there was a hearing Monday, and the hearing chairman, the House Judiciary Committee, is Greg Steuerwald, and they heard 4 hours of testimony from the public, from experts about amending Indiana's Constitution to not allow gay marriage, even though it's already state law that it's not allowed. And you have to believe that if they had the votes, they would have voted on it, if not Monday, at least Tuesday. But he said he wanted time to digest all of the comments, so they postponed the vote until next week. Now come to find out yesterday that Brian Bosma, who is House Speaker and apparently, according to the rules, has a perfect right to do this, wanted to change members of the committee and get rid of some members because as it stands now, the way we counted it, 3 of the 9 Republicans would vote no and would not vote to get this bill out of committee, joining the 4 Democrats who would and virtually kill it. So he wants to change it and change the members so that maybe they can vote it out of committee and into the House next week.
Doug, where do you see this going?
Well, really they're going to great lengths to preserve this push for the constitutional amendment. And what's the stumbling block is people really don't like the fact that civil unions would be prohibited. So they came up...
Yeah,
exactly.
The Republicans' own polling they released earlier this week showed that there was overall majority support for an amendment among Republicans, but that support dropped precipitously when they found out that it would also outlaw civil unions.
Actually, it disappeared.
Yeah.
I mean, it went the opposite way. They opposed it when they found that out. Basically, here's the thing. If you don't pass it this year in the legislature, then you restart this whole process. So if they try to clean up the language on it, if they do anything, then it's a do-over, and it takes 2 more years.
And by that time, it'll probably be likely to have gone to the Supreme Court. I mean, what we've seen in Utah and Oklahoma already, I mean, it seems like this is heading to the Supreme Court on the fast track.
Right, and our bill seems to be uniquely a hot mess because there's a companion bill that then tries to pre-interpret for judges legislative intent, which is really crazily presumptuous, and I think State Senator Karen Talion from Ogden Dunes noted that. And just one more thing I wanted to note, Representative Bosma did say that he was aware of the irony of resorting to extraordinary means, as you good word, to pass a bill he claims is really not a priority for the party. So it sounds like it's a hot mess because they're really trying to satisfy a lot of different constituencies, and we know that bad law sometimes comes out of when you try to please everyone in your camp.
And the other funny thing about this is, you look at the Republican Party, and your initial reaction is Republican Party pro-business. This is very clearly not a pro-business thing because the business community opposes it. And so, here they're going against one of their core constituencies. So
good point.
It's really putting the Republican Party in a tough spot.
Even the state chamber refused to come out with a position, I think, because within the state chamber there is still that
the small
business
businesses, the really tiny mom and pop constituents, a lot of them are very conservative, but the bigger ones, the ones that are recruiting talent,
globally,
Eli Lilly,
right.
yeah, exactly. Larger companies are saying, look, we want to be able to recruit the top talent no matter what. Right. You look at Governor Pence's State of the State speech. I don't know if you noticed this, but there was a line in there about Indiana should, and I forget the exact words, but Indiana should allow businesses to hire whoever they want. Well, gee, doesn't that sound like, that's running counter to this? I'm sure that's not what the governor meant, but, still.
Interesting. We wanted to touch briefly on a couple local, kind of local issues. One in Porter County, where in LaPorte County, they're hearing this case, this challenge to the redistricting that was conducted that ended up displacing one of the Porter County Council members who was going to be up for re-election, Jeremy Rivas, districted out of the 2nd District. So, Doug, where do you see that going?
Here's another huge mess. I mean, they waited way too long in the process. They waited till December to create the new districts. So they put in Jeremy Rivas with Jim Polaric in the same district. Well, the guy who's really controlling the shots on the redistricting is the president of the Board of Commissioners, and that would be John Evans.
Right.
We had the Portage Mayor, James Snyder, testifying in court, he really didn't want to be there. They had to subpoena him. And in fact, he interrupted his testimony to say, I like, Evans and
they're both friends
Rivas
of
are
mine.
both friends of mine,
Poor
he had to say truthfully.
Poor
he
Jim
had to
Snyder
say
on that one,
Evans said, and wouldn't it be nice in this redistricting if Rivas were removed from his district?
It looks awfully political, and
Absolutely.
It'll be interesting to see how this judge rules on this. Over in Lake County, we have an interesting issue going on with a battle between Hammond and Mayor McDermott and surrounding communities over Hammond sanitary rates.
Griffith, Highland, I can't remember the third one. Munster and Hammond ended up having to pay a lot more money to redo the sanitary district, or the sewer. They had to improve it because a lot of raw sewage was going into the Little Calumet, I think it was. And so they wanted to change in midstream the contract that they had with Griffith and Highland, and I can't
Midstream,
remember
no
the
pun
other town.
intended.
Yes,
Was it
exactly.
Whiting?
Maybe it was Whiting. I'm not sure. And they said, well, we have a contract for many years left at a lower cost. And McDermott fairly and rightfully said, well, we need to alter it because, Munster and Hammond should not have to shoulder the burden of these extreme costs. So Rick Rifa decided, a Griffith Town Council member dropped a bomb the other day. They have signed a memorandum of understanding with Gary so that they have 2 months now to discuss with Gary, maybe having Gary join Gary's sanitary district and leave Hammond. And a judge just last week, without the Gary piece of it, determined that they have to go to dispute resolution, and the judge wants them to all present their case and decide what they're going to do. And so Mayor McDermott vowed that he would not grant any more. If they have new businesses or anything in Griffith in particular, he would not approve it, and they would not get their sewage treated for those new businesses. And everything's in the toilet right now in North Lake County over this issue, so we'll see where it goes.
The jokes write themselves. So.
Exactly.
Well, and the ironic thing about this is, here's Griffith in the position of, looking for a special favor from Gary after,
which is what Mayor McDermott
complained
said.
mightily about. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And as
Griffith and Gary are the only two in Calumet Township, and Griffith feels like it's bearing the brunt of supporting Gary's poor in the township. So they want out. They want the state to help them get out from under that, and yet at the same time, they're trying to strike a better deal with Gary. And Mayor McDermott, as chairman of the Lake Democratic Party, made note of that.
And
on the
who
one
wouldn't have
hand,
noticed
they're
that?
harming
Exactly.
Gary, and on the other hand, they're asking for a favor for Gary. So it's politics as usual in Lake County.
Welcome to Lake County. Well, in Northwest Indiana. So.
Right, and before we end this edition, wanted to draw your attention to something that we're going to have in Sunday's edition, an in-depth report on the South Shore Extension, the quest for a South Shore Extension. We're going to have a full report on that. We're going to have an editorial on Sunday. So I don't know if you want to talk about a little bit what readers are going to see and what we are trying to push for.
Well, the idea is you're going to have some local skin in the game. The federal government will pay half the cost of bringing this in, and I think that's a pretty pretty safe
Yeah.
bet, considering you've got P. Blaszkiewicz pushing strongly for this, and here's a congressman who's not only got a lot of seniority, but he's on the Appropriations Committee. So I think that's going to have some.
Yeah.
But this is the
weight.
year we have
So
to do
this
it.
is the
This is
year.
the last year
Right.
that the feds are going to meet that match. So that's, I think, the sense
Right.
of concern and
And there's urgency. It's got to be done in
Urgency,
this
correct.
session,
Yeah.
this legislative session. So there's probably no more urgent issue right now facing the entire region from an economic standpoint than this South Shore extension.
Yeah, from the federal standpoint, the urgency is that the federal budget is going to be, shrinking pretty dramatically, and so
let's get this money now.
let's get
while
this
it's
money
there
now,
to be
because
gotten.
otherwise, there's so much competition.
Right.
You're going to have to pay a lot more to get that match.
Right. So please, take a look at Sunday. Pick up Sunday's edition. Read everything that we'll be presenting there, and let us know what you think. And we'll obviously be following this very closely, and we'll be talking about it, I'm sure, in future editions. So thanks for watching, and we'll be back next week with another political roundtable.